Mitt Romney has recently drawn some eyes with his post in his op-ed in the Washington Post. And there are some people that are speculating that this whole thing is him making a bid for president. I kind of doubt that. I don't think that Mitt Romney has the political appetite for that anymore. If he really wanted to run for president, he should have done it in the last election when the field was wide open. I do not necessarily consider myself a Mitt Romney Republican by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, he's about as moderate a Republican as you're going to find. This is the guy that authored Romney Care, which was the template for Obamacare. So by no means a conservative. By no means a conservative. And he was so not conservative that I didn't even vote for him in the general when he was running against Barack Obama. I didn't vote for Barack Obama either. You know me better than that, but I wrote in a third-party candidate. So when it comes to this, you know, I don't know exactly what Mitt Romney was hoping to accomplish, but I don't think that he's setting up a presidential run. I think that a lot of the establishment Republicans do genuinely believe that Trump is a flash in the pan and that these Trump-style Republicans are not going to last. They're not going to be here for very long, and when the smoke clears and Trump is out of office, be that in 2020 or in 2024, however it happens, that people are going to basically reset and go back to the old way of doing things. I think that is, from their perspective, a far too optimistic understanding of it. However, they're not 100% unfounded in that belief. And the reason that I say that is because if you're looking at the Tea Party did kind of fizzle out. And when you're looking at Donald Trump, all the people that have tried to basically mimic his campaign and tried to make themselves Trump-esque in their campaigning have all failed and lost. I mean, Roy Moore tried to do that to a great degree in our own state, and we see how that turned out. Now, granted, Roy Moore had a lot of other problems besides that, and I'm not trying to say that that was the only factor, but there have been several candidates that have tried to make themselves basically Trump-light and not done very well. One notable exception to that would be Ron DeSantis in Florida, who actually did win the governorship and described himself very much, tried to make himself into little Trump Jr. And so even though I thought that strategy was dumb, it actually did wind up getting him the governorship by the narrowest of margins, I might add. But nonetheless, that's where we stand. And so I think that a lot of the establishment Republicans are just trying to ensure people that they're not part of the Trump machine because they believe the Trump machine is still going to completely derail and fall apart on them. I think that that is not necessarily what's going to happen, because I think that they've taken this genie out of the bottle, and the really what Trump is a glowing example of is the GOP rage machine. And I'm not saying it's good or it's bad. I'm just saying it is what it is. There are a lot of people that are frustrated and sick and tired of being pushed around and said that they are racist for just having the policies that they do, that they're sexist, that they're bigoted, that they're homophobic, and that they're greedy, evil pigs for wanting to keep their own money and their own property and have nice things for themselves and nice things for their children. And when I say nice things, I'm not talking about mansions and yachts. I'm talking about a decent home and, a car for them and for their spouse. Those are the kind of things that people are basically said they're barely making ends meet. And there are people telling them, you are not giving enough. And you know what? Because you're not giving enough, the only reason that you don't want to part with basically everything that you have is because you're a racist, bigoted monster. Oh, and by the way, if you do have a problem with a 35-year-old man using the bathroom next to your 6-year-old daughter, you're the hate monger, you're the evil one. People got sick and tired of that with good reason. And because of that, they will look to candidates that are sufficiently outraged and will kind of give a voice to that frustration that they're experiencing. And Trump was the ultimate embodiment of that. But here's the thing. The GOP outrage machine pre-exists Trump by a pretty wide margin, by several years. Trump is really good at riding that GOP outrage wave, but he's not the one that created it. And so I think the establishment Republicans, they tend to look at the whole quote-unquote Trump movement as something that lives and dies with Donald Trump. And once he's gone, then it's just going to reset. No, the GOP outrage is still going to be there. It was there before Trump. It's going to be there after Trump. Trump's been really good at riding that wave, but he's still not the one that created it. And so because of that, I think that the establishment Republicans are looking at this the wrong way. And so they see themselves as someone, if they are seen as someone who actively opposes Trump openly enough, then they're going to be the person that the GOP base runs into the arms of when they realize that Trump has failed them. And I just do not see that happening. Not by a long shot. If, let's just say that Trump suddenly went away for whatever reason, let's say, God forbid this would happen, but let's say he passed away. And all of a sudden, what we were left was President Mike Pence and the establishment GOP, for the most part, with the exception of, guys like Mo Brooks and Rand Paul and Ted Cruz and Gary Palmer and those guys. You would still have the Freedom Caucus. You would still have some real conservatives in Washington. But nonetheless, you would have a far more establishment GOP if that were to take place. Do you really think that the conservative voters that put Trump in office in the first place are just going to forget that you guys have been basically ignoring them for a couple of decades now? It's not going to happen. It didn't happen with Romney. There's a reason that people did not show out in sufficient droves to make sure Mitt Romney wound up winning that midterm. Or sorry, not the midterm, the presidential election. And so, while Mitt Romney did very well in Utah, there's a reason that he wound up not being able to beat Barack Obama in that second election that he was in. And if you're looking at the actual op-ed that he put out there, some of it actually is complimentary of Donald Trump, which is a good thing. Because I think there's some things that Donald Trump has done that are really good. There's some things that he's done that I thought were really bad. And the areas in which Mitt Romney does compliment Trump, I think that he's 100% right to do so. For example, he talks about his judicial appointments. He talks about his tendency not to regulate things and actually push for deregulation. Those are all very good things that Mitt Romney is correct in complimenting Trump on. But his big criticism is that he's a failed president that never rose to the office. Well, I think it's very true to say that Donald Trump never really became the polished, suave politician type that people were kind of hoping for, or at least hoping he would somewhat acclimate himself to. He's not someone that is cautious with his language. He's not somebody that is really good at explaining complicated ideas. The guy's not great at making a sell to the American people. Great at making a sell to his base. And that is not a skill that should be completely overlooked. But he's not great at making the case of why his policies work or have worked to the American people. He's not a great communicator when it comes to that. He does tend to relate to people on a more emotional level than he does an actual logical, rational level. And so a lot of those things that people were kind of hoping for that Trump would kind of grow into in the office, he didn't really do. And so I think it's actually a fair criticism for Mitt Romney doing this. So some of this is perfectly legitimate criticism. And I found myself agreeing with Romney probably more than I disagreed with him. But here's the thing. Why? Why would you as a senator, before you even take office, take a very public jab at the president and leader of your party? I don't understand the logic here. I don't understand why Mitt Romney would just up and say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and take a jab at the guy before I even I'm even sworn into office. It doesn't seem to me a very wise political move unless you go back to what I was saying just a second ago. That really what is going on here is that Mitt Romney does not understand that the Trump movement was not really all centered around Trump. I get that the guy's a larger-than-life figure and people kind of think that, and I think Trump himself even thinks that. But the point is, the underlying problem that caused Trump, the GOP anger machine, that is still there. And that's not going to go away when Trump goes away. And Mitt Romney does not understand that. And so because of that, he's trying to position himself in such a way. I think Jeff Flake has essentially the same idea. That he's going to position himself as the guy that was ringing the bell and was sounding the alarm that didn't go along with Trump on a lot of things. And because of that, he's going to be he's going to be the guy that people run back into his arms and say, see, I told you I was really the right choice. I just do not see that happening. Maybe it signals a run in 2020. I tend to not personally think so, but I could be wrong. We'll have to see. And I will say this, though. I'm probably closer to Romney on personal morality, and I'm probably closer to him on a rhetorical level. In other words, I would agree with some of the things that Romney says more than I would agree with some of the things that Donald Trump says. However, let's be honest about this. Donald Trump governed far more conservatively than Mitt Romney would have. Do you really think we would be having a fight about the border wall if Mitt Romney were in office? Because I have a very hard time believing that. Do you really believe that we would have cut this much regulation and had this much turnover? And I'm not talking about the turnover where there's a new guy in the job every month. That's actually really bad for the White House. I'm talking about that Donald Trump has really cleaned house when it comes to a lot of these regulation agencies. Do you really think we would have had that much turnover when it came to somebody like Mitt Romney in the White House? I have a hard time believing that. And on the judicial appointments, I think that we would probably have someone very similar to Kavanaugh, but I think that we would have basically two Kavanaughs, because I kind of doubt that Mitt Romney would have gone the Neil Gorsuch route. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I really don't think so. And I think that the judicial appointments would be far more middle of the road than conservative if we had a President Romney doing it. And do you really think that Mitt Romney, who orchestrated Romneycare, would be out there and that he would have been able to get rid of Obamacare? Now, granted, Trump didn't either. I'm not saying that he did. Obamacare is still law. They got rid of the individual mandate, and that's about it. But if we're talking about Obamacare, do you think that Mitt Romney would be out there beating the pavement and talking about how we've got to get rid of Obamacare? Granted, Trump hasn't really done that either, but I'm just saying that I can't see an issue where Mitt Romney is the more conservative option than how Trump actually turned out. Rhetorically, he sounds more conservative than Trump in some areas. And I think that he actually is more conservative than Trump in areas, for example, on trade. But if you're looking at it, Mitt Romney would have been a very much establishment Republican, probably even more so than George W. Bush. And so because of that, I just have a really hard time buying into this idea that we would have a more conservative government if Mitt Romney were president. I don't believe that. I don't believe it for a second. I was afraid that Trump was going to be further to the left than Romney. I was pleasantly surprised when it turned out that he wasn't. And so because of that, I think that actually when you're breaking it all down and putting it in terms of Mitt Romney versus Donald Trump comes out as the more conservative of the two of them. And because of that, it was very foolish, in my opinion, for Mitt Romney to intentionally set himself up as a opposition voice to Trump. Maybe it winds up working out in his favor. In politics, really, nothing is beyond the realm of possibility, but I don't see that happening. I don't see it happening with the conservative base, and maybe it happens with the more moderate Republicans, but those aren't the ones that give you a primary. Those aren't the ones that deliver you primary votes to be able to win a GOP nomination. I think that Mitt Romney will probably be the senator from Utah for a very long time now that he's established and he's an incumbent. But I don't know that he can rise really above that, especially after losing his previous election. So when you break all this down, when you look at the Democrat side, the Republican side, I think that Trump is a very beatable candidate. And I think that really this is going to come down to two things. Is the economy good? Did he build the wall? That's it. Is the economy good? Did he build the wall? Because if the economy is booming, and right now it kind of is, we saw a drop in the stock market in December, but we've also seen some recovery, some signs that it'll be okay. And as long as we don't have pretty significant damages from these tariffs, I think we'll actually be okay when it comes to the economy. So if the economy's good, and he actually does wind up building at least a portion of the wall, I think Donald Trump will be pretty much unbeatable. Not completely unbeatable, but I mean, you can't really ruin the guy with a scandal, and he does have a lot of loyalty based from his base. If he does those two things, I think he'll be okay. Either one of those things goes awry, I think it's very much in question whether or not he gets a second term. Because with the wall, that may turn out to be, if he doesn't get it built, the George H.W. Bush read my lips, no new taxes moment. And when it comes to the economy, that's true of any president. I don't care who they are. If the economy sucks, if the economy is really suffering, that makes getting reelected much, much harder. Now, doesn't mean that presidents haven't done it. Barack Obama is an example. But it does make getting reelected a lot harder if the economy is just not doing very well. And so because of that, I think really Trump is going to do just fine as long as he's able to accomplish those two things. As much as I would like for him to be able to accomplish more, I think that that's really going to be what the election boils down to. This is normally the part of the video where I tell you to go ahead and like and subscribe, but the truth is, I really don't care whether you do or not. I mean, it's not like you really need all the latest news and commentary from me. It's not like there's a lot of really important stuff going on in the world and in the state of Alabama right now that you should probably be aware of. So, you know what? Like and subscribe, or don't. I don't really care. Reverse psychology. Boom.